Live now.
Yep, we are live.
It's live.
Okay, we're live. We're waiting on Augustine. Jude, I'm going to go ahead.
All right. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, I feel there's an echo though. I think maybe you might need to stop it and start again because there's an echo.
Sorry?
There's actually an echo.
That's okay. It's from my side. I'll put it off. Give me one second.
Well, do you want to stop it and start again so that the video doesn't have all this stuff in the front of
No,
it?
you can go ahead. Go ahead, Katinda.
Okay. We're live, and welcome and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Global Youth Mental Health Awareness Show, where we have open conversations with the youth about mental health. I am your host, Katinda Dollar, and they call me the Empowerment Queen and the author of The Big Comeback. And today's show, I'm so blessed, and we're so blessed to be in the presence of three amazing panelists. Our first panelist is Edith Wanyonyi. Edith has been with us since the show started. She's a counseling psychologist and also an ambassador of the Global Youth Mental Health Awareness. Hello and welcome to the show, Edith.
Thank you so much. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Nice to see you. And our second panelist is Edwin Kitao. Edwin is a certified addiction psychologist, founding director at Huhai Center, and a global goodwill ambassador. Hello and welcome to the show, Edwin.
Hello, Katinda. Hello, Edith. Hello, everybody. I'm good. I'm happy to see you again.
Yes, we have a third guest, but he seems to be having a bit of a connection issue, and that is Augustine. So we'll wait until he actually connects and then we can introduce him. So we'll just start this conversation and just start rock and rolling. Now, in our conversation today, we're going to be educating and sharing some insights about the gender-based violence in recognition of the UN 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. So we know ending violence against women is everyone's business. And this year, like no other year, even before COVID-19 hit, violence against women and girls had reached pandemic proportions. Globally, 243 million women and girls were abused by an intimate partner in the past year. Meanwhile, less than 40% of women who experience violence reported or seek help. So, Edwin and Edith, what do you think, or how would you describe, or how would you define gender-based violence?
Okay. Thank you so much, Katinda, for that question. I'll define gender-based violence as a violation of human rights that is directed towards a person's gender specifically. Yeah, so it's a violence that is directly it's directed to a person's gender. That a person is being violated in regards of their gender. Yeah.
Right. And Edwin, what do you think? What are your thoughts? What is gender-based violence?
Oh, thank you very much, Katinda, for that question. And I would want us first and foremost, I want us to look at it from a different perception. I want us to look at it and first identify, or rather be in a position to define what violence is. Because you can have domestic violence, you can have gender-based violence, you can have the assault, you can have psychological violence, you can have physical violence. But what is this violence that we are talking about? In my school of thought, I believe that if you look at a human being, there are those aspirations that he has in life. There are certain potentials that a man has, and compared to the present situation that he is in, the gap between the present and the actual position that he is in, anything that tries to widen the gap between what he can afford and where he is at that moment, I believe that is violence. And everything that tries to hinder him from reducing the gap, that is also violence. So violence in what we see, or rather what we are referring to as gender-based violence, is something that is inside somebody, and he's trying to manifest something. This is something that is hidden within himself. This is something that he's trying to. Violence is just but a manifestation of an unsatisfied person. That is what I would define violence, and that is why we see a lot of gender-based violence, a lot of domestic violence, because there is the potential against the present situation. That gap is very wide, and when somebody tries to close in the gap, then that violence tends to manifest widely.
So, in other words, you're saying when people get frustrated and they don't know how to express their frustration, they obviously express it the wrong way,
yes,
because they hurt someone else.
Precisely, because like now, or say for example, when you know you have the potential of getting a job, and you have all that is needed, all the prerequisites, you've met all the requirements, and you still cannot achieve it, you're being violated. There is that gap. When you know that you have the potential of providing for your family, and yet you cannot provide for reasons here and there. If you know by any chance you are a lady, you're a woman who has the potential of running or being a manager of an institution, or running a facility, and you're denied that opportunity, that violence, that denial is violence by itself. And now it manifests in form of violence. Instead of knowing how now to control it or how to handle it, you become violent. That is my school of thought.
Thank you. And what are the causes of gender-based violence? What do you think is the reason why this happens? I mean, you've given a few examples there, talking about if you're trying to find a job and things like that, and you've got the gap. But what can you tell our viewers in terms of what are the causes of gender-based violence?
I believe that
we can't hear you.
Thank you, Katinda. I don't know whether I'm the right person to respond to this, but I'll do it according to my wisdom, and say that we have so many. We pardon me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Katinda, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, we can.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me, Edith? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I would want us to talk about the facilitating factors of this gender-based violence. Okay, thank you. Then it seems we have a small breakdown in the network. Okay, thank you. Now, I would want us to address the facilitating factors of this gender-based violence. And to begin with, we have a factor like male egoism. We have cultures, the African, precisely to be honest, we have cultural norms in Africa that support gender-based violence. We have weak economic safety nets and unemployment. Those are factors that contribute. We have the the element of poverty. We have alcoholism and drug abuse. We have a lack of employment. We have abuse of power. All these are factors that facilitate gender-based violence, whereby, but the main one is the weak economic safety nets and gender and socioeconomic inequalities. All these factors, I believe, they contribute greatly towards the gender-based violence. But there is this other factor which has come out so openly, the one to do with alcoholism and drug abuse. When you use something that intoxicates your brain and you have poor judgment, you make the wrong judgment, you intoxicated and you cannot make right judgment. That is another facilitating factor, and actually it is affecting our communities. Back to you, Katinda.
Thank you. Thank you. I see we've got Augustine Igweshi. Welcome to the show, Augustine.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Now, we were just talking about what are the causes of gender-based violence. And Edwin has mentioned a few. What are your thoughts, Edith, as well? What are your thoughts on, what could you add on that?
Okay, thank you very much.
Go ahead. Augustine, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. I think one of the major causes of violence against women, or when you look at the cultural, socioeconomic aspect of it, when you look at the legal aspect of it, when you look at the Patriot Act, that is where women are not, given the right to, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, but you're breaking out a little bit.
Oh, it seems I have poor connection. Okay, just like as our previous speaker have said, where somebody is high on drug, on lack of attitudinal change, where they don't have respect for women and girls, you have that urge to commit such violence against them. So if you are high on drug, you don't have respect, you don't respect the dignity of women and girls, you can actually commit any form of violence against them.
Right. Edith, did you want to add to that?
Yes, sure. What I think is that the roots of gender-based violence emanate from the culture. So we have in our cultures, like men and women are treated differently based on the. Gosh, I'm sorry, there is an echo. So
that's okay. We can hear you clearly.
Okay. So I was saying that men and women are treated differently. So you'll find that with the gender roles, they are treated differently. And I think that's where the problem starts, because you'll find that maybe boys are told, you should not do this, you should not behave like women. So they'll grow up thinking that women are maybe weaker vessels, not be respected. And so even the girls there are taught to respect their brothers, but it's not like the other way around. So when we bring up children in such kind of an environment, I think they grow up with this notion that women are lesser than men. So I think it's important to bring up children with equality and teach them that it's important to respect each other, so that even when they grow and they become members of the community, they can be able to treat each other with respect and equality. Yeah, thank you.
Yes. So we know that.
I must agree with Edith. discriminatory cultural belief and attitude actually contribute to a lot of gender-based violence.
Right. Now, here we got gender-based violence is it peculiar only to females only?
Not at all.
No,
Both
I don't think
men,
it's peculiar to women. Sorry.
both men and women experience this gender-based violence, but you have a higher percentage of it by affecting women. Studies have shown that 3 out of every 10 women experiences gender-based violence in their lifetime, while 1 out of 10 of the men experiences gender-based violence. So you can see gender-based violence affect both men and women, but it's predominantly on women. That's why emphasis are more laid on women in issue of gender-based violence and discrimination against women.
Right. Edith, what did you want to add?
Yeah. What I'm saying is that gender-based violence is not peculiar to women alone. It's also to men, and also it happens to different groups in the society. For example, like the LGBTI group. Yeah, so I can say that it's peculiar to men and women alone. And then what we didn't say is that gender-based violence comes in different types. So we have like the child marriage, we have FGM, brutal killings, sexual violence, physical violence, emotional and psychological violence. Yeah, then the different forms of gender-based violence.
Yes, there's a
Yeah.
lot. Edwin, what did you want to add into that?
Well, I agree with what the previous speakers have said, that this is a universal problem. It affects both gender, male and female, and just like I said from the word go, violence. The moment we address the issue of violence and not uh, basically dwell much on which gender, so long as it's violence. But considering that we are 16 days on gender-based violence of activism, we are addressing the gender-based violence. But ultimately, we should address violence as a topic because it affects both male and female. And just like I said, this percentage is higher on male violating the female because we have that male egoism tends to be up there. There is that male ego in we the male, and that is why now we call for gender mainstreaming. Thank you, Katinda.
Thank you. Now, just moving on, if you've just joined us, we're talking about gender-based violence and how it affects families and communities as a whole. So click share, comment, and invite your friends to watch and ask any questions, because it's really important, because this is a topic a lot of people don't like to talk about. And we're here today to just enlighten and put some, just inspire you to take action and to seek help if you're actually either going through gender-based violence. Now, moving on. How does gender-based violence affect our physical and mental health? Who wants to tackle that one?
Okay, yeah. Looking at the how gender-based violence affect our physical and mental health, if we take a deep study of any form of gender-based violence, you realize that they undergo psychological disorder. There is this kind of depression on them, and they suffer a kind of anxiety. It also there is the stigma attached to gender-based violence affect their mental well-being. So the physical and mental health of somebody who has suffered gender-based violence is actually depressive, and the person has a tend to commit suicide at certain point of time. I've been in an event where they invited somebody who has suffered gender-based violence to share her story. So at a point, she thought of committing suicide because everybody seems to, because her life was totally affected of the depression and the psychological trauma she's passing through. She no longer feel belong to the society, just want to end her life, leave this world to find a better place. So it affects the mental well-being of a person who has suffered any form of gender-based violence, ranging from anxiety, depression, and disorder, every form of mental health issue. When the person think of the situation, the trauma and everything affects the person's performance, even at workplace, even at life activity. The person feel depressed, he feel that anxiety, he feel that pain on the person, and it affect overall psychological well-being of the person.
Thank you. Thank you. Edith, Edwin, what do you guys want to add into that?
What I'll say is that I have worked with survivors of gender-based violence, and one of the experience I had is that these people, what they experience is post-traumatic stress disorder. So when I was working with them, they could like relieve the experience, like during the counseling sessions, a survivor could relieve the experience. Then they could always have frequent flashbacks of the event, and they were depressed, so much anxiety and so much like amnesia. Yeah, so that's generally the psychological effects of gender-based violence. And then physically, like the physical effects could be like it could lead to homicide, suicide, and also infant mortality and maternal mortality. We could have like infections like HIV and AIDS, somatic disorders, reproductive disorders. Also, it could even lead to disability, because I remember there's this lady who had a back problem because of the sexual violence that she went through. Yeah, so it has very serious effects on the physical and psychological aspects of a person. Thank you.
Yes, also it could also lead to death, because we hear like a lot of women who get murdered as well. So
yeah,
yes, Edwin, any thoughts?
Yeah, maybe to add slightly on what has been mentioned, and basically I want to agree with you that what you are asking is that, is humanity being crippled by the violence? Is humanity being crippled by gender-based violence? Is what are the consequences? And be it physical, emotional, violence, we have effects that are reflecting on relationships. This is interpersonal relationship between me and my next partner, between me and Edith, between me and Katinda, that the relationship is affected. And once the relationship is affected, it affects even intrapersonally between me and myself. I'm not at peace with myself. I don't feel contented. I feel stigmatized. So there is the aspect of poor relationships that comes up from gender-based violence. Mental health is another area that we should not forget, that once you are violated, you become mentally disoriented. You cannot focus. You cannot express yourself in the right way. That eventually leads to unproductivity. Person whose performance has been reduced because they feel they have not, they cannot produce, they cannot perform fully because they feel somehow disregarded. Then there is the issue of crime and violence. It has been a major thing that talks about physical and the emotional bit. So I would say that all these are meted. Once they are consolidated, we have a, a broken down social system. Thank you, Katinda.
And what are the risks of gender-based violence? You know, you've mentioned a few, but what are the risks moving forward? Like you just said, it's of course a broken society. I would think things like unemployment, you know, people are afraid, they have low self-esteem, you know, they have no will to live because they just don't see any, they've got no hope. What are some things you think?
I think they are prone to another, sorry, I think they are prone to another sexual violence because, like you've said, their self-esteem is already low. So they are prone, I don't know why, but for the many survivors of gender-based violence I've come across, they've had like multiple violence. Yeah, so I think they're also prone to another form of gender-based violence, and also they could replicate it to other people, you know, like a form of revenge. Yeah.
So what are you saying? If they move on from one relationship to another, they will go to the next relationship and they will attract people who will still violate them.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah. Yes, that's what I think.
Okay. For some of the risk, somebody who has in rape cases, somebody who has suffered rape cases, harassment, could also have the risk is having infections. Somebody who has suffered rape as a form of gender-based violence could get infected. Somebody who has suffered harassment in the workplace could have low productivity because the person could not have that zeal to produce well, and it causes it can have a low self-esteem. Somebody who have suffered gender-based violence have a low self-esteem. So there are a lot of risk attached to it. Even is it called VVF and the unwanted pregnancy and all of the issues associated with internal system of the person. There are a lot of risk associated with that.
Thank you. Edwin, anything you want to add?
I'm sorry, Katinda, I did get that question properly. I think I'm having a problem with my network.
Okay.
I don't know.
I'll repeat the question. So what are the risks? Yeah, what are the risks of gender-based violence?
Well, the risks of gender-based violence, number one is we have issues of mental health. You may find somebody who is incapacitated mentally because of the stress. We have issues to do with unproductivity, just like I mentioned. This can also lead to death. This can make somebody to perform poorly in academics, even at workplace. It's all over. It's just like I said, gender-based violence is crippling our societies. And remember, when we don't have a stable family, because the family is the most basic unit in the society, once we miss the step there, the society is rotten. We don't have anything for the community. And equally, nationally and internationally, the systems are rotten. So we have to fight left, right, center to ensure that we have the right morals and fight GBV in all ways and means. Thank you, Katinda.
Thank you. And what are some ways we can do to prevent gender-based violence? I'm sure I know that we need to educate people more. So what are your thoughts, Edith?
Katinda, just a minute. I think the previous question you had asked, we forgot to say that gender-based violence, one of the risks is that it can also lead to drug abuse. Yeah, it can also lead to drug abuse and sexual disorders. Yeah, wow. I think so. Then,
Thank
Yeah.
you. And did you
What
want
do you
to
think?
Yeah. So what are some ways? So moving forward, that is actually very true. Edwin, that's your side of things. Do you agree with that?
That is my area.
Okay.
Yeah,
Ways
and
we can prevent gender-based violence. I think we need to build institutions like the judicial system. There is need to bring up domesticate conventions and acts of both from local to national level and global level, in strengthening institutions that provide justice to victims of gender-based violence. Because I've come across many cases of gender-based violence where the victim seems not to get justice, because they do not get justice. Those who do the act continues with that act. They go through they commit the act and go free because there is no they seem not to be apprehended and face the law, and there needs to bring up more acts and also domesticate and implement both global conventions that speak about gender-based violence and all of that, and also cultural practices and norms. There is need more to do about that, cultural practices, beliefs, and norms that those things are what we are going to be doing at the grassroots to change the mindset, attitudinal change, and also try to build more strong institutions that will provide more judicial system that can be able to, like, a girl was murdered by her boyfriend, but I followed up the case with the family. The family seems not to let the case be, because they said we have been talking about bringing justice, but justice is never gotten. So they don't believe that the system will actually give justice. So there is need to strengthen our judicial system, those involved in handling the issue of gender-based violence cases, so that people can actually get justice. And when justice is done and the perpetrators are brought to book, I think it will send a signal to others who want to commit the crime so they now begin to think twice before they can actually commit the crime.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Anyone has something to add, or should we just move on to the next?
Yeah. What I'd say is we need to reduce like childhood exposure to violence, because you see what children see
Yeah.
is what they'll grow up knowing. So it's very important to reduce that. Then let's teach people on healthy relationship skills, and also let's strengthen the economic support for families, because one of the underlying causes of domestic violence is poverty. So when we strengthen the economic whatever nini of families, I mean the economic support of families, it will reduce the effects of gender-based violence. And also I think it's just important to educate even bystanders or the society on the risks and the effects of gender-based violence. Thank you.
Edwin, what do you think? What are your thoughts? Edwin, can you hear us?
Thank you, Katinda. Yeah, I can hear you, although there is so much echo. I'm getting your question much later, but I'll address a few things and say that you're asking us how can we break the cycle of the gender-based violence, because something needs to be done. And to begin with, I would want to mention that it has to begin with me as an individual. I have to get that awareness that I as an individual, I have a role to play, so that I protect my sister, so that I protect my brother, so that I protect my partner, my wife. It begins with me. Then, just like Edith has mentioned, we reduce the exposure to children. Because this is something that we want to stop once and for all. So we stop exposing our fights to children. Instead, we encourage mentorship. We have programs where we do gender mainstreaming, we capacity build these young ones who are not yet married, who are still in their formative stages, such that once they grow up, they'll be responsible citizens who can preach peace. So basically, I would also want to mention that soon after we have capacity build ourselves, then we have the right policies, we have the government come in, chip in, and implement the right policies that protects against any violence. Thank you, and back to you, Katinda.
Yes, I've got a question which is interesting. This is for Edwin and Augustine. So if you knew a friend of yours who was actually obviously being it can be both ways. It could be a victim or also could be the one that is actually inflicting the conflict. What would you do? What advice would you give him?
I think I'll take that one up first. What am I doing as an individual to stop? First and foremost is to address the issue of the life skill of this person, because it seems he is not able to manage his anger. Because once you know yourself, you should be emotionally strong. That is what we are referring to as emotional intelligence nowadays. I would first and foremost try to cool him down, make him come to his senses, tell him that anger is not the best way of, you don't address issues when you're angry. Cool down your tempers, take a walk, take him for a jog or something like that. Once he's back to his senses, then only you can address issues soberly. So first and foremost is to understand that this person is, where the anger is coming from, or what are the causes of the way he's behaving. First is to withdraw him and try to mitigate, try to be a mediator. I apply all my conflict resolution skills, and this is what I'm saying. We need to educate our people. We need to empower our people to have these tools, to use them in their home places, to use them in their workplaces, and eventually we are going to achieve something. Back to you, Katinda.
Thank you. What about Augustine? What would you do if a mate, a friend of yours, was actually being the person who is inflicting the violence? What would you do? What advice would you give him?
Okay. Just like Edwin have said, I need to engage him one-on-one. By engaging with him one-on-one, I have to use conflict resolution approach to highlight the risk involved in what he wants to do or what he has been doing, the dangers and the implications of what he wants to do or what he has been doing. Try to let him know that this is not the best way to go. There's other ways you can actually live together with your partner. There's other ways you can actually do things without being violent to any woman or girls. It has to be one-on-one engagement using the best approach, to identify and prefer solutions to issues that he wants to the violence he wants to commit or he has been committing. So my approach will be in two ways: highlighting the dangers and the implications of what he is doing, where it will lead him to, or where it will lead the victim to, even the society at large. So when he understands, because he needs some kind of psychological turnaround, he needs some kind of orientation. Maybe he does not know and understand the implications of what he has been under drugs or something that way. So if he's under drug, we'll first of all try to take away the drug from him, try to make him understand and try to do away by rendering some kind of mental health support so that he can be able to, avoid drug, because most of people also takes drug to commit the act. Why some of them commit the act deliberately, while some use it for selfish purposes. Some who use girls for rituals, who commit violence again, they rape them, take some part of their body to do ritual. So we need to highlight the implications and a lot of education orientation have to go in place. It's not actually a day job. It's has to be a continuous process that we need to engage the person frequently with a lot of mentorship and education.
Thank you. Thank you. And what about this? There's a cultural norm in certain cultures where the women believe if the man does not hit them, they don't love them. What are your thoughts about that? Because that's a very interesting topic. I've heard a lot of women have said that to me. A lot of people have experienced those kind of stories. What do we need to do to change that narrative?
Yeah, in that situation, is actually working in changing the cultural norms that actually has to do with beating a woman before you know that the man loves you. This one has to do with the woman itself being beaten, because the woman actually loves beating. Because if you do not beat her, she doesn't believe that you love her or you care about her. That is another thing entirely. It's all about trying to change that traditional belief and norm. So it has to do with working with local communities and those who are involved, local communities that actually, bring up the law, so that I can be able to, changing the women's narrative as well. Because when you change the norms, and the women too still believe that if you don't beat them, you don't love them, it's another thing altogether. So the women actually need education that loving you, beating you before I can prove that I love you is not the real love. So they need a lot of education and reorientation to change that narrative.
Thank you. Edith, did you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, sure. It's
Let's get
very
a woman's
interesting.
perspective.
Personally, I don't think I would allow anyone to hit me because, okay, I think, like Augustine has said, it's rooted in culture, and we just need to challenge some of these cultures, because some of the cultures are harmful, and just challenging them and making these women understand that there's no love in inflicting pain on a person. So I think it's good to challenge them, because you realize that some of these cultures could even be fatal. So it's very important to educate these women, because again, you realize that most of them are uncivilized. So when they come with that notion, I just think it's important to educate them, and the men as well. We need to involve both women and also the men, so that they can understand that there are better ways of showing love. Yeah, like just teaching them on the healthy relationship skills. Thank you.
Yeah, and Edith, before we finalize, where can people go to find more information about Global Youth Mental Health Awareness?
So Global Youth Mental Health Awareness has a website, that is www.globalyouthmentalhealthawareness.org. People can also email Jude at jimha.org. Then we have our social media platforms, that is Facebook, we have Twitter, we have Instagram, we have LinkedIn. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And just before we finalize, what is one piece of advice each one of you can give to the viewers watching about gender violence? What is something you need to, give them? What is something you need to give them for them to start thinking about, or thinking of how they can help get empowered to overcome some of these issues that are associated with gender-based violence?
Yeah, for me, I think most gender-based violence issues or cases are very underreported, and also some who have suffered gender-based violence don't speak about it. So it's actually important that we speak about it. And if you have suffered any form of gender-based violence, it's important that you speak about it, you tell somebody about it, so that you not live with the trauma, you not live with the stigma and all of that, so that you get a kind of psychosocial support, you get some kind of mental health counseling and all of that. So it's always important for viewers, it's always important that we speak up about issues of gender-based violence, and also it enables policy formulation, because if the cases of gender-based violence is underreported, lawmakers, they will not be able to bring up policies, because, for example, if you say in a local community 50 women, a community of 1,000 persons, if you say 50%, 40% have suffered gender-based violence, it will bring up an action to fight against it. But when you say 10%, 5%, people will just be, nothing is happening. But where you have more cases reported, people will tend to take more actions in addressing issues of gender-based violence. Thank you.
Thank you, Augustine. Edwin, what do you think? What is the one thing that people need to actually start actioning to get empowered?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. First and foremost is to encourage them to keep following us, because this is a well of knowledge. We have very empowered speakers who can enlighten and make us understand on the current issues. Now, number two is to talk about, to mention that life is very dynamic. It has so many things have changed. And those people who believe that we need to get a slap for you to function, then you're overtaken by events. So this is not the age and time for violence. That we also need to also, to our listeners and to our followers, let's also remember that we can engage, or we can inculcate the culture of multicultural exchange programs. Like now, what you're doing in Australia, what Augustine is doing, I don't know where it comes from. I believe it's in Nigeria. We have that multicultural exchange program so that we know where we are going wrong, so that we know how to make life better. Because it would be very wrong if I come to Australia with my Kenyan mentality or my culture or where I come from, that I have to slap a woman for her to give me food. I mean, I look out of place and out of order. So we need to empower ourselves. It is an individual responsibility, and then the family to take up the role of bringing up the children rightly. The society should also encourage the proper gender mainstreaming programs, so that we get a holistic approach to end this program. I mean, to end this problem. Mine is to summarize by saying that violence is gradually crippling humanity. Thank you, Katinda.
Now, before Edith speaks, we've got a question from Mahmouda Kanloe from, I think, South Africa. And she says, we talk about female genital mutilation. What about infant male circumcision? Why is this not considered a form of GBV, gender-based violence? Who wants to take that on?
Katinda, what I think about this, I think it's a form of gender-based violence. The reason being, yesterday, I read somewhere that an 8-year-old boy died from circumcision. Yeah, he was 8 years, and I think 8 years is young. Though I was reading some comments, and people are saying that 8 years is not young, and so I got to even know that even children get circumcised as young as 2 years, 3 years. But I think these are children. They do not have a say, and so they can't defend themselves. So I think it's important to let them get older, to an age where they can be able to know, even to understand what is happening to them, and so they are psychologically prepared. Because like for a child, I don't think they are prepared for that, and the pain could be too much for them. So I think it's important to address that issue. Yeah.
Because I believe the reason they do it to children is because they don't have a choice. The parents decide for them.
Yeah, thank you, Katinda. I want to chip in on that and mention that this is violence, because you're making decision on behalf of somebody who is not of age, I would suggest, just like I said, life is very dynamic. In the olden days, in the Jewish cultural system, the way they used to do, 8 days was the most appropriate. Remember, even Christ was circumcised when he was 8 days old. But then we have gone beyond that. We have to forget, we don't live in the past. Let's live in the current, because life is so dynamic. So I would encourage that we sensitize, we empower our people, we empower our communities, that until and unless, personally, I also believe some things that are being done on girls, like piercing and the earrings when this child is still underage. I mean, without the consent, maybe this kid is undergoing a lot of stress. So we have to empower, to enlighten. We have a duty. Now that I'm empowered, I know that what my mood has just brought in, I never thought of it, but now it has widened my thinking. So that's why I'm saying such forums, they are very, very important to change the systems. Thank you, Katinda.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Now,
yeah,
Edith,
thank you. Well, male circumcision has been something in time immemorial. Maybe it has some kind of yes, we could consider it as a gender-based violence, but I think it's some scientific in scientific setting, when you look at the sexual organ of a man, that particular issue needs to be, for me, that particular issue, I think even the doctors that does it themselves, even in the developed country, female are still being circumcised to remove that particular organ, so that when they grow and they start having sexual intercourse, they can be able to, because there is this, if you look at the how will I put it, the shape and the study of both male and female sexual organs. So it's not believed that if a male is circumcised, he can be able to have a well, not like the women, where you circumcise a woman, later she becomes very prone to sex and have a lot of issues. But that of a man actually, accordingly, have a lot of feeling when there is a kind of sexual intercourse than person who is not being circumcised. But it's still considered, but this issue has not actually been talked on. Why?
I think we lost you there.
Doing that particular.
We lost you. We didn't hear the last sentence. What you just said.
Oh, okay. I said the particular issue may actually said is a form of gender-based violence, but when you look at the science behind the circumcision of a male child, and when you look at the sexual organ of a man, how it will actually perform when it actually want to have sexual intercourse with a woman. So they now consider it appropriate to remove that particular organ of a man to enable the person do his job very well. I don't.
Okay, we're losing you. We're losing
I've not actually get people talked about it often now. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Adrian. No, not Adrian. I think Edith. What is the one thing you would give, or what can people take away? What can they start doing today to get empowered in regards to gender-based violence?
This is what I'll say, and I would address the community by saying that let us not victimize the survivors of gender-based violence. Let us not see like it's their fault. So let us embrace them, and also let us build protective environments for everyone, for our children, for our women, even for our men. And also let us educate people we are the ones who can educate people on gender-based violence, and together we can always end gender-based violence, because you realize that every day in the world, people are being violated. So it's our duty to educate people and to end gender-based violence. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have another question. Keep the questions coming. This is amazing. What is the role of discipline in the prevention of gender-based violence? Who wants to tackle this one?
I think I'll take up on that one. This is where we said that it begins with an individual. If you don't have the right morals, if your bringing was not right, it's very important for you at this stage and time to instill discipline to yourself. Before you lift your hand to hit a woman, know that you're violating. Something is wrong with your thinking. Because I said, the moment you have emotional intelligence, when you know what you're about to do, then you'll not lift your hand. When you'll know when to withdraw. If this person is provoking you, just walk out. Just know that my anger is just somewhere near close here. And when somebody is about to provoke you, just walk out, withdraw. You become a man when you don't hit, but you withdraw. I consider you as a hero when you pull out rather than hit somebody and then live in regrets, because you never know when you hit somebody what is likely to happen. That person may go, when you strike, that person may die. You may leave a scar, permanent scar on that person, and you live in regrets. You've seen people who have killed their children and their wives, they end up hanging themselves. What if they avoided that? So discipline is very key. Discipline, self-awareness, emotional intelligence, all these are skills that we need to inculcate in our lives to make it better. Thank you, Katinda.
Thank you. Anyone else wants to add on to that question?
Yes, discipline is very key in prevention of gender-based violence. Like exposure, the way you are exposed, maybe if you have lived in a violent environment, and if you have been brought up in a family where there is a lot of fighting and violence, you actually grow up with that mentality, and actually you are likely to commit gender-based violence. So yes, where you are coming from, the way you are exposed to things, the environment you lived in actually affect the way you act and the way the likely manner you will commit gender-based violence. So it's very, very important that the discipline and the path we follow, we should always bring our children to the right environment, to the right discipline, so that they can be able to, avoid issues of violence against women and boys, not only women, because men also experience gender-based violence. So environment where exposure and the attitudinal behavior you inherit from your guidance, your parents, actually defines how you will go about these things. But if they have the right discipline, it will go a long way in preventing GBV.
Thank you. Thank you. Edith, did you want to add anything onto that?
What I can say is that parents need to know that as they bring up the children, they are not bringing them up for themselves. They are bringing them up for the society. So how you bring up your child is how they'll become. They'll become someone's wife, someone's husband, someone's girlfriend or boyfriend one day, and how they'll treat the other person depends on how you brought them up. The higher percentage depends on that. So parents, it's very important to bring up your child in discipline. Yeah.
Yeah, I usually say when you've got a child, always think about them as an adult, what you just said, because as you said, one day they'll be someone's husband, someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's father, and they need to be the role model for that to be a good environment to bring up children or to be around, and also making friendships, because I think it's not easy to make friendships. You're always angry and you're always the type that people know that you fight or you're just messed up. And that's why what Edith was saying before, we need to show them empathy, people who are actually also perpetrators of it, because maybe they don't know why they do it. Like Adrian and Augustine was saying. Maybe you need to talk to them. They need education. They need people to help them find out what are the problems, the underlying issues that obviously are causing the problem, and why they're taking it out on other people who are weaker than them instead of confronting the problem and dealing with it themselves. So on that note, we don't have any more questions. I think that's the last question. So we're coming to the end of the show. And before we go, I always like to ask, what is one thing you do for yourself to check in with your mental health on a daily basis? So we'll start with you, Augustine.
Okay, is there one thing I do to check on my mental health?
Check in with your mental health here to make sure that you're healthy and you're not going off the twist.
Okay, I check my performance. I check my ability to do the certain things I used to do before. So and I do a lot of exercise in the morning. I have to take up some press up, check up my body. If I have any kind of weakness, I try to deal on that.
Thank you. Edith.
I do so much of meditation and also connecting with my friends. Yeah.
Thank you. What about you, Edwin?
Thank you, Katinda. Personally, I like being who I am. I don't live in the world of pretense. I speak my mind. I always, when you wrong me, I'll tell you on the face. When you do right, I'll always appreciate what you've done. Because I came to realize that once you start piling things, once you start keeping stock, old stock, eventually you blow up. And that one is not very healthy. So that is number one. Number two, I don't do drugs. I don't do alcohol. I also, number three, associate with positive-minded people like you, people like Edith, people like Augustine, people like Katinda. You people who can enlighten me and make me rich. Thank you, Katinda.
Thank you for that. Well, for me, I do a lot of different things. I do a journal every morning. I obviously wake up, stretch, drink a glass of warm water, like room temperature water, meditate for 20 minutes, exercise something physical for 20 minutes, and I write in my journal. I write what are the 3 things I'm grateful for that morning. Because that, for me, I believe without gratitude, life is nothing. So I'm just very grateful to even be here, to host this show, to meet wonderful people across different parts of the world. And it's just gratitude, really, expressing lots of gratitude. Thank you so much, guys. So before we conclude, I'll just see what else we have here. We've talked about where to find us. So where can people find you? Edwin, where can people find you? What is your social media handle?
Thank you very much, Katinda. Kibe Edwin Gitao, Kibe, Kibe, Edwin Gitao. You'll find me on Facebook using that. The same thing on LinkedIn, Kibe Edwin Gitao. And I have a website, www.uhaicenter.org, www.uhaicenter.org. I am an addiction psychologist. I address issues to do with alcohol, drug, and substance abuse, which is also a key facilitator in the topic for today, gender-based violence. Let's keep off drugs. Let's keep off alcohol. Let's have a sober mind. Thank you, Katinda.
Thank you. What about Augustine? Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook. My name, Igweshi Augustine. Same with LinkedIn, Igweshi Augustine. There you can find me on Twitter at Austin Sespef. And you can find me on Instagram at Austin_Sepast. My email address, igweshiaustin@gmail.com. You can also follow our Facebook page on Global Youth Movement Against Gender-Based Violence. So once you type Global Youth Movement Against Gender-Based Violence, you will see us. So I actually lead that team that is working to reduce gender-based violence across the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Augustine. And what about Edith? Where can people find you?
For me, people can always find me on social media. Facebook, my name is Edith Wanyonyi. All my social media handles, Instagram, on YouTube, Edith Wanyonyi, on LinkedIn also. And they can also contact Jim Ha. Yeah, if you want to find me directly. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So what will happen too, we'll put all those links on the bottom of this video. So if you missed it, we're going to put all the links, all the tags. So please, if you want to continue this conversation, please tag us, tag Jimmy, tag Edith, tag Augustine, tag Edwin, and so we can continue this conversation, because I think it's very crucial that we help each other, empower each other, and give each other the best we can, because that's why we are here in this planet together. Now, as I finalize this, we know change starts with you, like Edwin said. So remember, you're not alone, and the world is filled with abundance of support systems that are there for you to take whenever you need them, especially when you're feeling life is just beating you up. And if you've experienced abuse, it's essential you seek help. Most importantly, if you're currently fearful or you believe you're in danger, please contact the emergency services in your country immediately, because they will help you. And that's all for today. Thank you so much, Edith, Edwin, Augustine, for the insights, for the amazing conversation. Just so educative. I hope people listening are enjoying this. And thank you, viewers, for being a fabulous audience and for watching the Global Mental Health Youth Awareness Show. Now, for next week, our topic is how addiction affects families as a community and how the disease is really damaging our families. So what are the physical, what are the emotional, what are the psychological effects of addiction? Until next time, take care and stay blessed. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye, guys. Thank you. Thank you. That was awesome.
Thank you.